right, people, we're back. Victory and Vices podcast, live and in full effect. Me, Rory Spooner. You can see Reece Henley back with me again. No James Veck. Scheduling conflicts meant he couldn't be with us today, but he will be back next time. But more importantly, as you can see below us, very special guest, Mr. Paul Robinson. Paul, thank you again, mate, for coming. We really appreciate it. We had a bit of a scheduling issue ourselves trying to get you on, but we made it there in the end. We were obviously just delighted to have you on, mate, and really just get to know a bit about you. So we just wanted to start by saying, how are you in general, mate? How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm keeping fine. Obviously, lockdown sort of hit a few people really hard, but I tend to stay really positive. For me, it was important time with my family because I've never had it for 24 years with my hectic schedule that I had being a professional and then going into the coaching. So yeah, I just love being around my family, my kids, my wife, just spending that quality time with them.
Yeah. Good show, mate. If the wife is listening, he's delighted to be home. He just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, she's got a patient at the moment because she's a professional acupuncturist. So she's been obviously working with through the COVID because she's a key worker. Keeping on top of the mental health and people that need her the most. So yeah, that's been brilliant for her.
I was going to say it's probably nice for you almost, because whereas a lot of people have obviously hated lockdown and what have you, and especially the element of it where they have no choice but to be around their wife and kids or husband and kids or whatever. But obviously for you, having been a professional footballer and having spent such long periods of time not being able to do that, I'd imagine it's almost been an enjoyable period of time for you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely enjoyable. Obviously getting to know my boys with their routines and obviously just not being around to even do the school run sometimes was tough for me because I was travelling up to other clubs that I was playing for. So just spending quality time with them, getting to understand them better than what I already knew them. Things that we love to do together in the garden, just like silly little games and little kick-arounds and things like that. They're the bits that you treasure the most because, say, they're the most important bits in your family.
Yeah. Are they keen footballers? Have they got anything about them?
I want them to enjoy all the sports. Yeah, they're good footballers, rugby players, golfers. So whatever it is, I want them to be free and enjoy it and have a smile on their face.
Yeah, no, fair play. If they inherit your skills as a left back, look, they're gonna be all right. They're gonna be good. They're gonna be very good.
I don't want to be compared with me. I'm totally different compared to what their characters are like. So as long as they're happy with whatever they do, I'll fully support them.
Yeah, well, do you know what's funny? You say that about character, right? Because I was watching. It's just mad. I was watching this the other night. I was watching Chris Rock, the comedian, and he talked about how he grew up in Brooklyn and he was relatively poor. He didn't have a lot of money and it developed a lot of character for him. And one of the things he disliked most growing up was rich kids. He was like, I can't stand rich kids. And he said, in turn, I actually dislike my own kids quite a bit now because they're growing up quite wealthy. So he was on about, obviously, his kids growing up rich and they're not going to develop the character that he had. It sort of helped shape him. Do you worry about that with your boys as well? That maybe life might be too good for them sometimes?
No, I think because we always keep them grounded. We always make them realise is that you have to earn what you want. You can't just have it when you want to, like say to me or my wife Caroline, it's like, I want this. No, you're not having it until you've earned it. So we always have ground rules in our house, and the boys they're pretty good. We've brought them up the right way, and they're polite, they're respectful, and yeah, once they know they've earned something, then obviously they'll get their little treat. But yeah, well, we don't go over the top with it because I want them to be like me. I want them, and Caroline, we're the same. We're grounded people, and you have to earn whatever you want. You've got to earn it.
Yeah, do you know, it's so funny you say that as well, right? Because there was a big thread on Twitter. It was over the weekend. There was the NFL player, Reece. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Chad Okocinco, I think he changed his name to.
I reckon you nailed that name.
I think I may have nailed it. If I didn't, apologies to any NFL fans that tune in. But basically, his daughter wanted a pair of trainers. And he said, well, go out and earn them then. So that's what he said to her. Obviously, he's very well off, played in the NFL and he said to his daughter, I think he shared the text online, Reece. I'll have to show you later. It was really good. And basically, it sparked up, bro. People were like, what? You've got all this money and you're making your daughter work for a pair of shoes. And he was like, yeah, that's what we do. We're grounded. And people there's a whole generation, I suppose, Paul, that just, they can't grasp that.
Yeah, well, like you say, it works with some people, it doesn't work with others, does it? But we have to set the ground rules, because otherwise it's take, isn't it? And for me, what's important is that my kids grow up knowing that they were well grounded, well respectful, and appreciate everyone else in life.
Yeah, no, very true, mate. Very true. Obviously, family aside, in terms of your sort of day-to-day life, as you know, COVID, I say, ceases to exist, hopefully goes away forever. But are you going back? Is it sort of coaching that you're doing now, or what's the next step for you?
No, so the next step for me is obviously I'm just waiting to find out. I left Birmingham in the September 2020, just because I'd literally had enough. I wanted a break. I wanted to switch off. Lockdown come at the perfect time for me to do that, because I think it gives a lot of people time to think of where do they want to be. Do they want to carry on doing the jobs that they're doing, or do they want a different route? And for me, it was always I want to try something different. I want that break. Yes, I want that break, but I started my own business up as well with a Paul Robinson sports mindset.
Oh, okay.
I started that in January. So obviously I had that time and that period to sort of think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. I love my coaching. I love being on the grass. I love helping people. And we'll just wait till the summer now, because like you say, COVID was obviously, there wasn't going to be a lot of changes just because of the financial backing. And owners weren't prepared to sort of let people go and then bring a whole lot of people in. Because of the revenue and the money that they were earning wasn't there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the summer opening up, and like you say, what opportunities are out there for me.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, with all your different ventures going on, you know, I read that you were recently made an official ambassador for Watford Football Club. Obviously, having you started your career there, and I had to wonder. I mean, I've seen people like Lee Trundle were ambassador for Swansea, for example, just down in South Wales, where we're from. What does an ambassador actually do? I mean, do you get to go out drinking with Elton John? Is that kind of what does an ambassador do?
Funny enough, I met Elton John a few times when I was coming through the ranks, because he loved the football club. He was a great chairman. He was like a brother to Graham Taylor at the time, and he used to come in the dressing rooms after the game and just like say, "Oh, well done, lads, a great performance." And you'd sit there and have a football conversation with him because he was so switched on. It was you're sitting there and you're thinking, "Oh my God, that's Sir Elton John." What is going on here? He should not be in here talking to me about football, but he is. So, yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing about Watford was a family, and Graham Taylor instilled it in all the staff, the players, and Elton John was again one of the big happy family who wanted to everyone that was associated with Watford to make them feel welcome. And yeah, it was just great to spend quality time with him in the dressing rooms, chatting about football.
So, I mean, tell me about that then. So let's say you go in the dressing room, it's half time, you've been dreadful, you're 2-0 down, and then say Graham Taylor comes in, gives you both barrels, and then what is Elton John coming in? And then you're thinking, oh, he's giving us an arm around the shoulder, or is he giving you the Elton John hairdryer treatment? Was he bringing his piano with him? What's going on?
No, Elton John never come into the change rooms before, and but like the start of the game or at half time, he was always at the end. So he would wait till all the players have come in and the manager spoke to him, and then he'll come in and just literally it was so good. He would just sit there and chat with you. You would be there sitting, sometimes you haven't played the best, and he would come over and chat to make sure you was all right. So you go like, what is everything all right, Robbo? And you'd be talking to him about your game, and he'll go, don't worry about it. These things happen. It's part and parcel of football, and that's why we all love it, because we make mistakes and we play really well. So just don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up about it too much. And that's the type of character he was. And the guy, it was just incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that is, yeah. I'm sat here trying to imagine Elton John just flinging cups of tea after the game and just looking at the tactics board going, Robbo, this is what you were supposed to be doing. This. Exactly. How many times do I have to point this out for you?
With his star glasses come through. Yeah. Star glasses. That's what you expect him to happen. But no, he was, I mean, fantastic chairman for Watford Football Club.
Yeah. And, it's funny, right? Because this is an excellent segue into what I wanted to ask you as well. With Elton John being sort of, very high up, shall we say, at Watford, he would be considered to be very elite. Now, obviously, Watford themselves wouldn't be considered to be an elite club, but I use the term elite because I'm not putting Arsenal in that bracket. I don't care what anyone says, they're not going in that bracket. But you are the first ex-pro we've had on since the whole ESL debacle. Now, it leads me nicely into obviously how clubs are sort of run, the people that run them. And we wanted to get your take on it because, like I said, you're the first ex-pro that's come on since everything sort of blew up. What was your take on the whole European Super League sort of fiasco?
I was disgusted with it. The way it was done, I think, was the worst bit. The way that the clubs themselves were trying to underhand everyone else by going behind what are the rules. And trying to broker a deal that was worth billions of pounds just to fill their pockets. For me, it's not acceptable. You're letting not only your fans down, the ones who build the clubs and make the clubs. You let the players down. You let the managers down. Who you're putting them in a difficult position with. Well, what do we come out and say? Because we've not really been involved in it, but yet you've put us in a position where we feel like we're involved. Obviously, you've got the clubs, then the pyramid system, with the lower league teams, with what they've had to go through and with COVID. And yeah, I just felt like everything was just rubbed in them people's faces who worked extremely hard to keep the clubs up and running through the COVID period.
As a player, how would, I mean, it's hard to say because there are individual differences, of course there are, but how would a group of players, because I can only assume that this blindsided them to a certain extent, how would a group of players that are working as part of that club, for example, a Manchester United or Tottenham, who have all of a sudden decided that they're not going to be part of the Champions League. I mean, as a player, surely the pinnacle of your career is to, as a club level, is to play in the Champions League, right? So to be told overnight that that's not going to be the case anymore, and actually you're going to play in this whole new competition, which you've got no real, sort of respect for. How do you think that would feel?
Well, it was the format, wasn't it? There was no relegation, there was no promotion, there was no trophies. So what actually is it? Right, okay, then is it a bit like the national leagues that we have with England and all that? Well, the Nations League, they're just a waste of time. Do you know what I mean? It's why are you putting these things together when you've got fantastic cups like the Champions League, you've got the Europa League, you've got the Special Cup was in England with Premier League winning the FA Cup, all of these trophies that everyone loves playing in because they mean so much, they're special, and you're playing against clubs all from around the world. So I just don't get it. It's just people. For me, it's people who don't understand football. That's what I look at. They haven't got a clue about the fans. They haven't a clue about what it means to everybody. They haven't got a clue about the players, what it means to play in the Champions League, what it means to play in the FA Cup. They haven't got a clue what it takes to play in the Premier League against these teams who work so hard to get promoted from the Championship. They're just clueless people who don't understand the game, and it's all about money. That's all. At the end of the day, it's all about money.
Of course, and I think we discussed this so many times on the podcast that football is essentially at its core, it's a game made by the people for the people, and it's been overrun by people who are just in it for money and to run things like a business. I mean, in my mind, there's nothing wrong with the idea of a Super League. There's nothing wrong with doing away with the Champions League. If that's decided what's going to happen, but you've got to have divisions of those leagues. You've got to allow teams to be able to get in and get relegated from those leagues, because what underpins that then is the idea of competition and fairness. But to the idea of what they were doing, it just stank of corruption more than anything else.
Well, it just baffled me with the teams as well, the actual teams that you're naming. Well, why them teams? Why an Arsenal? You've not proved yourself as an elite club. No disrespect to them, but you're not in the levels of like the Man Uniteds or the Real Madrids or the Barcelonas. Yeah. So that was the most baffling thing for me. Inter Milan, AC Milan, where are you getting that from? It's just all rich owners who their only interest is a business proposition. It had nothing to do with, we don't care about the fans, we don't care about the players, we don't care about the managers, but this is what we're doing, so you're going to do it. Basically, the owners are telling them. And it was just, the biggest thing for me was it was just so good how it brought everyone together to get them to, and Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher have got to take full responsibility for that with them voicing their concerns. Yep. And then everyone else, the ones who, like the punditry ones, like the Rio Ferdinands, the Jake Humphreys and all them, Gary Linekers, who jump on it as well. It just made it even better that everyone had a voice. And that's the most important thing, is that everybody had a voice.
Yeah. Do you know the appropriate term I use for people like that, Paul? culture vultures. That's what I call them. So they come in, these American owners, and they want to franchise everything. They want to put extra cheese on everything. And basically their idea of football is, we'll have cheerleaders and cannons firing at halftime, and we want the biggest show. And it's not really that with us. Like there's nuances to it, and the issue I have with them is none of them, and I can safely say, right, because I've seen it with Swansea, I've seen it with other owners as well. I think even at Aston Villa, they might have had an American owner. They do not take the time to learn the culture. They just don't do it. They just come in and they almost want everyone to adapt to them. Whereas no, you need to adapt to us. Like, you need to understand that this is our football pyramid. This means the world to people. You can't just come in and go, right, we're going to create a super league. By the way, even if Arsenal finish 14th next season, they're still in it because they've got a good bank balance. Arsenal, I say this with full disrespect intended, Arsenal are crap, right? I watched them the other night, and Arsenal were awful. Like, they were general. Spurs barely had a shot on target the other night against Man City. If Harry Kane leaves, God forbid, right, Spurs are going to have next to nothing. And then the whole thing with Florentino Perez, who for some reason, he was the guy at the forefront. Florentino Perez started talking about trickle-down economics, where he was like, well, if our cup flows, to the top, it'll come down and everyone else will get the drink from it. And I was like, look, we've seen this before. We know that's not how trickle-down economics work. They don't work that way. There's no way, Shrewsbury and Carlisle are going to benefit because Florentino's got an extra 300 million a year. It doesn't work.
Like, to pass down to all them clubs who are suffering the most. Is it going to trickle all the way down to the National League or the lower leagues, like the North and the South?
It's a joke. It was generally one of the worst things. And I like you said, the way Twitter was gold that night. Like, everybody came together, irrespective of who they supported. And fair play to even fans like Arsenal fans, Spurs fans. They were like, look, we love our club, but we're not what they're telling us we are. When we're not a top club, like, we don't deserve to be there. And the whole thing flabbergasted me. And then today I was reading that obviously apparently the deal is still in place, and that there's quite hefty is it leaving fees, Reece, or fees, exit fees for these clubs not to be in there?
There's all sorts of red tape around it.
It's huge. And apparently even Boris Johnson backed it, and then when he found out about the backlash, turned around and said, "Oh, actually, I completely disagree with this." So the whole thing is
Boris was involved.
Yeah, Boris had to have his slice. Yeah, he had to get.
When he got down again, knowing him,
I couldn't possibly. I couldn't possibly back the idea of a politician lying. I wouldn't endorse that for one moment. But there's an element of the whole thing that people actually just haven't considered, and that's if we were to go ahead with these elite clubs, so-called, go in and join in the Super League. And then the repercussions of that likely being expulsion from the Premier League and the various European leagues that they're in, expulsion from the Champions League, and really just having that one tournament fought between those 12 or 16 teams. Then the one thing we're missing there is what happens to the academy, because all these players coming through, for example, we take a Phil Foden, who is, for want of a better term, a generational talent. Okay, that type of player comes through an academy once in a blue moon, if you'll pardon the pun. And with the rest of the players that come through, perhaps they don't quite make it, but they do get chances. They get chances in the smaller games, in the League Cup, in the FA Cup, against teams like, smaller teams in the league, like, your Fulhams or, other teams that are, of lesser extent that Man City can dominate possession in. When are those players going to get a chance if they're playing against Barcelona, if they're playing against Manchester United every week? Are you really going to trust a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid to give him that chance? Would a player like Jude Bellingham be allowed to have that chance? I just don't. That wouldn't happen.
No, yeah, and that's like you say. This is what academies are all about. Is about giving the kids the greatest opportunity to play for the clubs that they're representing, and that would be all taken away just because of the fact is that the greed of the players that would then go and sign for these clubs will be on ridiculous amounts of money. And there's no pathway for them. So, yeah, like you say, I'm glad it's all stopped. I don't think it's going to be the end of it, because there's always going to be some other talk or some other format that they'll try and come up with where they'll try and make other people happy. So it's going to be a long time ongoing, I feel. But we have to make sure that it's all done for the right reasons for me. And that is protecting lower league clubs, protecting academies, that we're still getting our youth through and they're representing our clubs, that they're brought up in, the homegrown kids. And they also get the opportunity to represent their countries.
Protection is a key word there. I wanted to get your opinion as well on the 50, is it the 50+1 rule? Am I saying that right, Reece, that they have in Germany? We brought it up on the podcast years ago, talking about how they implemented it in Germany. And obviously, looking at the list of clubs you played for, Paul, Birmingham, Leeds, Bolton, all really savaged by poor ownership. And then obviously at home with us, Swansea, savaged by poor ownership. Reece being a Newcastle fan, savaged by poor ownership. We could run through clubs all day and the ownership is just killing these clubs. So as someone who's played at the top level, you've a good idea of the ins and outs of, the inner the inner workings of a football club. So how do we protect football clubs further from this? Is the 50+1 rule the best idea, do you think, or is there a better way?
I think it's a great idea with what they're doing in Germany, but that's in Germany. I don't think we can do it just because we're so much bigger, aren't we? And that's the structure of our leagues and the way that we do it. I just think the people at the FA, the people who give these accreditations to the owners, they need to do more. They need to do more checks on the owners that are coming in to buy the football clubs. They need to make sure that the money is there for them and that they are spending it the right way. Again, obviously, we're seeing teams losing point deductions for overspending, but we're seeing like the Man Cities who should have been another transfer ban, but then paid it off. So there's got to be a balance. You can't have one team sorting themselves out like the way they are, but yet the other clubs are struggling to sort of take points deduction and possible relegations, like Wigan, for example, could go into administration. Like Bury, we've seen Macclesfield all going out of business. This is where we need the hierarchy now to step up and protect these clubs and protect our system with how we do it. They need to do more checks on the owners, more checks for me.
I mean, I'm a Newcastle fan, as Spooner mentioned, and we had an owners and directors test that lasted 8 months. So I'm not sure more checks is something that I'd vote for. But with regards to you being an ambassador, I mean, I keep saying on the podcast that something needs to change, and the fans need to be more involved on a formal level. And it could be a fan, it could be a player, for example, like yourself for Watford. But why don't you just take a penny out of every ticket sold? Of a season, for example, pay someone a salary that they can live on, and make them a go-between between an official supporters club and an ex-player who is themselves a fan of the football club. And the club, give them a seat at the table, give them a vote, give them an actual say. And then if they get voted down, they get voted down. But they actually get a say in how their football club is run.
Yeah, I mean, like Germany do, don't they? They all vote, don't they? If one of the owners puts their foot out of line, then they all get a decision to make. He needs to change. End of story. So I mean, the fans are the most important people, but a lot of clubs do that. I know a lot of clubs do that. Watford's brilliant. I mean, yes, I'm an ambassador for them. I do the connecting between the fans. So I've been calling fans throughout lockdown just to check in on them, make sure they're okay. Are they enjoying the things that the clubs are doing? So you're always getting feedback off them because it's important. We need to know how they're feeling and what we can do better to connect with the fans. And for me, that's the most important thing. I love doing it. I love doing my job with Watford just because of that, is that I'm speaking to fans, checking in on them, making sure they're okay. And then obviously my other roles are on the Hive Live TV stuff that I do with them. So I'm watching the games, covering. So again, I'm connecting with the fans because they're seeing my points of view through football, watching it. Right, okay, Paul's giving us an insight to what he sees. So I'm hoping that fans are picking up on some of the stuff that I'm bringing.
They would love that. I like speaking just on a human level. I mean, if you've watched someone play football for 10 or 15 years and you're a massive fan of them, and during lockdown, plenty of people had very dark days. And if you were to get a call off yourself, for some of these fans, that would make their week. It really would. Just for them to even hear your voice, how you doing, any feedback for the club, they'd be buzzing, mate. That's a great scheme. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on that as well, I mean, we've had the privilege in the last few months. I mean, we spoke to Warren Barton, who I know he's obviously a huge Newcastle fan and loves talking about it. ex-pros just love talking about football. I mean, the same can be said for Nicky Hunt. We had a chat with Nicky Hunt, ex-Bolton right back, and he loved talking about Bolton. I think it's a scheme that could get exactly well. I mean, exactly like yourself, Paul. Just love talking about football, and it's a scheme that can get ex-pros engaged in the game still, and keep them engaged in the game, and can keep fans engaged with the football club. I think it's an absolute no-brainer.
It is, and we're not seeing enough of it. I've always voiced my concerns about the ex-professional players that are not at their clubs. I mean, the Chelsea do it well. They do it really well. They get all the ex-players coaching there. Man City, they've obviously got their players who mingle in between not only the supporters but between the youth teams. And it doesn't happen. Arsenal are now doing it. You got Pierre Mertesacker there as the head of academy. So it's great because they know the club, they understand it, and they then filter it through to not the staff members that come in that might not be associated with Arsenal as a person, but Pierre will change them into doing that. And for me, it needs to happen more. We need to see more ex-football players in the clubs, like Lee Trundle, like you say, doing a fantastic job at Swansea. Leon Britton's there as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Leon Britton, again, the examples, they're key examples of that connection. Is that gap, isn't it? You're bridging that gap between the players who are on the elite level to bringing it to the fans who are at home, sitting at home, like don't know what to do, twiddling their fingers, thinking, when are we going to get back to games? We're getting really depressed now and I can't handle it. And it's right. You need to phone them people and we need to be in touch, or even pop round their house, surprise them and just stand outside the door and have a chat with them. So you see them face to face, things like that.
Yeah. It works on so many levels. It really does. It's important that, like you said, that, there's that gap is bridged, because I think sometimes, again, owners who are maybe a little bit out of touch, and, in some cases, okay, I understand why they live in a different world, but just come down a peg or two and just look at it from a different perspective. And it does. It works terrifically.
Yeah, but they're out of touch. They're out of touch because they don't connect with the fans.
Yeah,
that's the problem. You only hear from them once in a blue moon by what their targets are at the start of the season, and that's it. When do you see the owner? Like, does he make phone calls to the fans to check in on them? Probably not. I haven't heard many clubs who've come out and said, "I've had a phone call from Liverpool chairman." Do you know what I mean? It's just right. Okay, if you don't understand the club, then get to know it. Phone fans, have a chat with them. For me, and that again, that's too many people live in their comfort zones because the owners are like, they've got the millions to spend. They can sit on their nice little thrones in their houses that they've got. Get out of your comfort zone and go and speak to the fans and have a chat with them about how they're feeling about their football club that they supported for all their life.
Yeah. And, I think that's interesting that you say that. Do you think on a personal level, is it laziness from owners, or are they scared of what fans might say to them, do you think? Or is it both?
It's both. For me, it's both. They're probably scared of the opinion from the fans, and they're probably too scared to sort of connect with them because they haven't had that connection to start with, and they don't want to make the first move. As owners, it's that, oh, do I really want to make the first move? Even like when you see Jurgen Klopp, he's the Liverpool manager. What he sends he sends letters to fans. He's thinking of them. So it's that little, like the fan who will get that letter will be like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. The manager from Liverpool Football Club has sent me a letter. It's just time and effort. That's all it is. It's not hard. It's not hard to do it.
And you know what? It's good business as well, because if you're, for example, Jurgen Klopp has had a disastrously bad season at Liverpool. Make no mistake, if he was pretty much any other manager that Liverpool have had in the last 15 years, he would have been sacked. Yeah. But because the fans love him so much, and yes, okay, what's gone before has been pretty incredible, which has bought him time. But because the fans love him so much, they have not turned on him. In large parts, they have not turned on him, and that buys you time. And that's the same with owners. It can buy them years.
Yeah, definitely. And we also don't see that enough in football. We see the owners trigger happy when results are not going for them, and it's always the managers that lose their jobs when, hold on a minute, just look at the bigger picture. What plan did you have? Did you have a 3-year plan, 5-year plan, but you've only given him 6 months? So what's that all about? There's just no stability at some clubs. The lack of stability is scary.
Yeah, well, do you know what? That's a lovely segue into what I wanted to ask you next about Birmingham, because obviously you're a Birmingham legend, and when we talk about absentee owners, I mean, I read through the Birmingham story earlier on, and I'll be honest with you, Paul, I was struggling to even pick a place to start because it's that bad. Like it really is. As someone who is, to say you're Birmingham through and through, the fans love you. Like they love you, like they want to, like you're from Birmingham. What when you see that the way it's being treated, what do you think? What's your thoughts on it?
It's just disappointment. And I've met the owners, and do you know what? They're actually really nice guys, and I think they've got a heart of gold. But I just think the problems of they keep coming all the time. They've never got their real grip on the football club, and they've never really come to terms with, right, what are we doing? Where are we going? What sort of plan have we got? And that's been the disappointing thing. I mean, I love the club. I've been there. I was there for 8 years, player, and 2 years as a coach. And it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart to see the situation that it's been going through. And every year I was there, apart from obviously the Gary Rowett one and Gary Monk, was the rest we were fighting for relegation all the time. And that's not acceptable for a club like Birmingham City Football Club. That shouldn't be acceptable. Or like surviving to stay in the Championship and go down to League One. They're much better than that. It's just they've just lost control of it. And I think they've been badly advised over the years. That's what I also think. I think they've let people get into their head, non-footballing people, try to convince them about let's do this route, let's do that route. Where no, the manager you bring in is the manager. It's his job to bring all that together. You support him in the background. That's your title, so you do your job that way. Other people who've got their titles, you stop interfering. You just do your jobs at the football club, and then that cohesion then will come together. And there's not been enough cohesion. But we've seen now Lee Bowyer's come in. He's a Birmingham ex-legend player as well. He won the Carling Cup with them, so he understands what the fans want. He knows what the players need. They need guidance. They need encouragement. And he's brought the best out of them again. And it's great to see him survive. But again, it's survival. We keep talking about survival. We need to see Birmingham pushing for playoffs and getting promoted.
Yeah, I'm interested to get your opinion on Birmingham, because reading about it, obviously the stadium, I believe, is mortgaged very heavily. So, all of a sudden a few missed payments and, you're in a lot of trouble. And then obviously I think there was stands that failed safety procedures as well. And like you said, the place is becoming very dilapidated, 100 million in debt as well. And there seems to be no end in sight. How do Birmingham get back to the big time? What should be point A for them now to get back? Is it initially a change of ownership, or can those owners turn it around?
I don't know the position that they're in. I'm not there anymore. So whatever's going on behind the scenes, I just think that they need to get a plan in place. They need to have, from the leadership from the top, for me, it then has to filter down to everybody. So everyone knows what their roles and responsibilities are. And that starts from the top. Our job is to get the stand in order so we can have all the fans back without any problems. We need to clear the debt as much as we can. We need to be sensible with transfers, them sort of things. We need to be sensible with contracts, not going extravagant. So you got the EFL knocking on the door again, going, oh, by the way, you've just gone over your limit again, so we're going to give you another 9 points. Little things like that, they just need to stop happening and just find that stability.
Yeah. If let's say, for example, tomorrow a consortium comes together and says, Paul, we want you to be part of this. We want to try and buy Birmingham. Is that something you think you might be interested in?
Again, the club's so close to my heart. But for me, I was there for 8 years, and I would prefer a new challenge now, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I had the time there. My pathway wasn't clear for me or clear for other people. So I only had one pathway, and that was probably getting off the ladder. So yeah, but I see that. I understand that. I've been in football long enough to understand how players or people get treated. And it's not a nice business, but it is what it is. And for me, I had to move on quickly. And no, for me now, I'm looking for a new challenge, a challenge that's going to excite me, a challenge that will get me out of my comfort zone and keep pushing me and keep driving to where I want to get to, which will be a manager hopefully one day. But yeah, at the moment, I'm still learning. I'm still young. I'm still developing. And for me, yeah, I need to keep learning and being like assistant coaches or first team coaches just to see my progression grow.
Speaking of young and developing, me and Reece were interested to know, when you were at Birmingham, was Jude Bellingham about initially during your sort of final days at Birmingham? Did you play in the same team, or do you train together?
No, I didn't play with Jude, but I coached him. So we seen his rise through the under-23s at Birmingham, and it was scary. It literally was scary to see a kid have so much talent at that age. I mean, he was just natural. You don't see them. They come around once in a lifetime, like you Phil Foden's at Man City. Jude's one of those special talents that will only get better and better in my eyes. He's just so good, but he's so grounded as well. Such a grounded lad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was interested to know, does he start for you at the Euros?
I don't know if he starts, but I would take him. I would definitely take him.
He's definitely on the plane, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely. I just think at the moment, we've got a whole lot of different midfield players, and everyone keeps going, right, we've got to take this one, we've got to take that one. I mean, you would hate to be Gareth Southgate at the moment with the midfield you've got. But yeah, for me, Declan Rice has to start. I really like him. Mason Mount and Phil Foden, you got to start them three in midfield.
Yeah, but then you're dropping Grealish.
Grealish can play wide left though, can't he? For me, I wouldn't play Sterling. Sorry.
Okay.
You know, that's becoming a very popular shout actually. Raheem Sterling is being phased out.
But then again, though, I watch Rashford sometimes, and he flatters to deceive. He's never. You get on the edge of your seat, but then you're disappointed, aren't you, with Rashford? I just think with Marcus, there's so much more to give within him, and I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but he just seems to go through the motions some games where he's like, he looks like he's in a strop.
Yeah, I think with Marcus, do you know what he's missing is that killer instinct to take him to the next level. Because I see Rashford score some very difficult chances, but he misses 2 or 3 easy ones.
Yeah.
And I think just go out there and stat pad. You know, you're against Fulham, right? Just you could easily get 3 or 4. And if it was a Haaland or a Messi or an Mbappe, I'd probably back them to score 3 or 4. But with Rashford, there's always that element of doubt where you think, is he really going to be on it today? And yeah, you are right in what you're saying. There's something still missing with Marcus.
I just think the English players are put under so much extra pressure, though. The media don't help. Our media don't help our England players because it's constant. They have a bad game. They're on their backs. You got to have a consistency with our English players, and I think we will see the likes of these players play more freely if they just take the pressure off their shoulders, because it looks like they do play with too much pressure sometimes.
Yeah, social media is a killer. Obviously, Jude suffered racial abuse. Amongst various other people. As you say now, for example, if we turn back the clock back to sort of the glory days for you, Paul, if social media existed at that point, would you have a social media account, or would you just go, nah, it's not worth the hassle?
I think it works for good ways, though. It works, again, for connecting with the fans, the people, because you're a human being. But it also doesn't work because we know there's loads of idiots out there, the keyboard warriors, who just want to cause a big storm, and they get away with it. And that's the disgusting thing about it, is that they get away with these crimes. For me, they are crimes, because you're attacking a human being with words, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, you couldn't do that in the street. You know, people have they have a very different energy online than they would, because they would never say that to some of those players' faces.
No, but that's what I mean. I'd rather someone come up to me. Well, I did have it once. I had it once with my kids. Someone abused me from across the other street, side of the road, and I had my child, so I had to move my child out of the way because I was worried about whether he was going to cross the road or not.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I'd rather someone shout at me than down a phone hiding like they do.
Yeah. Did you slide tackle him, or what happened next? I'm quite curious.
If he'd have come closer, I probably would have taken it in the car.
That's the Paul we know and love. There we go. Love it. Yeah. No, it's crazy, mate. Honestly, the whole thing. So it gets me thinking about a lot of ex-pros. How they would have reacted to it back in the day? Because I feel like the ex-pros, especially back in your day, were cut from a very different cloth. You wouldn't. Not the word tougher. I don't know if that's probably the word, but they're very no frills. They're like, if somebody had said something to them, they'd be like, all right, what are you gonna do about it then? Whereas now a lot of pros are a little, I don't know, media trained, maybe a little softer.
Well, they won't say anything to anyone, will they? Whereas we had scraps in the changing room, like in the changing rooms. Do you know what I mean? After games, we'd be like screaming at each other. Now you don't see it. It's happy, like, I'm not going to say anything to him just in case he gets offended. Well, how are you going to get things off your chest? How are you going to make yourselves better as a group if you don't let people know how you're feeling? Like, if I had a bad game, I expected someone to shout at me. Yeah, I'll take it. I accept that. That's fine. Yeah. It's part and parcel of the beautiful game. But no one means any offence to it, because at the end, you always, if you're out of order, you go away, you all think about what you've just said, you calm down, you come back, and you're like, look, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. Are we good? Yeah, we're fine. No problems.
Yeah.
But social media back then was non-existent, but now I do believe it's good for certain things, but it's not good for everything.
Yeah, dialogue is important, whether it's, I suppose, on social media or in person. Like, I'm very much like you. I like that aspect of speaking to someone one-on-one and just let it out. Like the incident on the weekend with Maguire and Fred, Reese, I don't know if you saw it. Basically, Maguire called Fred a fucking idiot. And everyone was like, this soft culture, Paul, like I was saying about, where people were like, oh, no, we can't say that. Oh, there must be some really bad in-house stuff going on at Manchester United. And I was like, those are two lads that are desperate to win. Let them shout at each other. You don't have to clutch your pearls every time someone has an argument. Like, it's perfectly okay.
Of course it is. And at the moment, you're going to pick up everything that's said because there's no fans.
Yeah.
So you can hear everything. Every time someone says something on the pitch, you hear it, and the commentator says, oh, I'm so sorry there if you heard some appropriate. It's part and parcel of the game. Let it go. Obviously, it's impossible to null it out because there's no fans there to sort of. But you're telling me that they would have moaned about it if they couldn't hear it, if they was in the ground and you see Maguire shouting at Fred. But
exactly.
No one would make a big thing of it because you couldn't hear what he was saying.
Yeah. We definitely live in shall we say, softer times. That's me being polite about things. But yeah, just to touch upon Bellingham very quickly, because obviously you'll have coached him, you'll have seen him. When he was making his move, I was curious. Did anybody come to you for any feedback and say, look, do you think he should make a particular move? Because I believe United were very close, and obviously Dortmund then obviously sort of got the upper hand. Who made those decisions? Because I got the impression that Jude's parents were quite influential in it.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's got to be a family decision. Yeah. I can only speak to Jude after. At the end of the day, it's his career, it's his journey. He has to make the choice of what does he feel is going to develop him the better, the longevity of his career. Right, okay, Dortmund's my choice because I see progression with the amount of youth that comes through there. Again, learning another language. I'd have loved that as a player. I'd love to have gone abroad and learned another language. Different culture, understand a different culture. So yeah, for me, no, it has to be the family's decision. It can't be anyone else's. He's the player, the parents 100% behind each other. This is what we're doing. Brilliant. For me, then it's just about support. Check in every now and then, see how he's getting on, see how the family is, have chats. Do you know what I mean? It's just have normal chats with him, like he's a normal lad. So yeah, sometimes you don't have to talk about football. You just need to talk about how things off the field, like how you're getting on, how's your language going. but he's an intelligent lad. He's a real intelligent and grounded lad.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Bellingham. I think he's going to go far. In terms of his brother, I'm very curious about the Bellingham family and the DNA they seem to keep producing, because his brother is. By all accounts, a very talented lad. Again, is he someone that you came across? I think it's Joby. Is it Joby Bellingham?
Yeah, Job. Yeah, so Job's there as well. Yeah, Job again has got a bright future ahead of him. Making sure he needs that right guidance. Again, let him develop. He's still young, and this is the pressure that we put on these young kids to the expectation levels of what Jude is. No, they're totally different players. They're totally different people. Yes, they're brothers, but they're totally different players with how they play. So just let him grow, let him develop the right way, and just give him that guidance and encouragement at the right time.
He'll have one good game, won't he? And then he'll be linked to Man United, and all the papers will be after him all of a sudden. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, of course it does. And again, he's lucky that he's in a well-grounded family, and they all see it. They see what goes on, and it's like everyone. If you've got the right guidance and you've got the right protection, and you know that the boys or the players are going to be good enough, then let them grow themselves, but just give them that support.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, obviously, from a coaching standpoint, you can tell that you're very in tune with sort of the young players. I was curious to touch upon this now, because you mentioned obviously going abroad and maybe learning a new language and learning a new culture. Obviously, as a player, it didn't quite develop for you in that way. Is that something you would maybe do from a coaching standpoint, maybe go abroad and coach?
Yeah, I think eventually. I think that would be nice to sort of go and challenge yourself in a different country, understand language, so learn a different language, understand like the foods, the cultures. I just think it's an incredible experience to go and do one day. But no, I love this league too much. I love being in England. I love the way the leagues are, the way that they compete against each other. Every league's different. So yeah, I think for me at the moment in time, it's better for me to sort of stay here in England and develop a little bit more.
And obviously, building on what Spooner was saying, I mean, I read that I suppose you were out with Toronto FC, I think, at a point,
yes.
Training with them in the MLS. And I suppose the question I had, I mean, look at people like Liam Ridgewell and Stephen Taylor, for example, for ex-Newcastle. I think they really reignited their careers in the MLS. It's huge out there. And obviously, I wondered, what was it like, obviously, going out there, but also, how did you make the decision that it wasn't for you?
Because what they do out there is they have packages. So if you're not a DP, then obviously you don't get a certain amount of package. And I've got 4 boys. So you're telling me that I'm going to move my family all the way the other side of the country and you're not going to look after my family properly, then it just wasn't going to work for me. And for us to sort of, again, move away from our family, when were we regularly going to see the grandparents? It would have been tough for the boys and also tougher for my wife Caroline, because she's well connected with her mum and her family. So yeah, missing them would be key to it. It was a great experience. I'm not going to lie, the facilities out there blew me away. I mean, they're miles ahead of some of the English teams here with the pitches, the gyms, the stadiums. It's just fantastic how they want to see their football going, or soccer, should I call it? I just felt it wasn't for me. But it was a great experience, and I'm grateful that they asked me to go out there to look around and experience a different culture. But yeah, I just felt that it wasn't the right time for me, and I just loved the English game too much that I wanted to be back involved in that again.
Yeah, when we spoke with Nicky Hunt, he came on. Nicky literally pretty much said everything you said. He was like, I think he had an option, Reece, to go to America, didn't he? He said, and he turned it down. He said it wasn't right. Obviously, Nicky struggled moving from Bolton to Bristol, so moving from Bolton to Boston is going to be even worse, And it's everything is amplified when you've got family and you're uprooting them, and if that level of support isn't there, then it is very difficult. I wanted to double check, when you played at Bolton, did you play with Nicky then? Were you two in the same team?
Yeah, I was with Nicky, yeah.
So he was right back and you were left back?
Right back and I was left back, yeah.
I would have hated to have played against you two. Because Nicky came on, and Nicky's big thing was, he's like, he misses the shithousery of the game. He's like, I love a tackle. I just want to stamp on someone's fingers, and I want to put someone up in the air. And I just sat there thinking, as a winger, right, you two would be my worst nightmare. Honest to God, I don't think I could cope.
Yeah, we used to try and scare the life out of the wingers, but I wouldn't go to the extremes of stamping on someone's fingers like Nicky would have. But yeah, you try and get into your winger's head as much as possible, knowing that you're going to put them off. That was my tactic. And then, yeah, if they did go past me too many times, then there would be that cynical, like, you're not getting past me again tackle.
Yeah. I want to ask you the same question actually that I asked Nicky, and that was, did you have any wingers that you kind of knew you could get them in your pocket, like someone you really relished playing against because you knew you had them?
Yeah, I used to love playing against Sean Wright-Phillips. Sean Wright-Phillips, he used to hate me. He used to every time he came up against me, he used to think, right, I know what's coming today. But again, he would never expect it at the times that I was gonna tackle him.
Yeah.
So there was one game when he played for Man City, and I literally timed it perfect. He'd had a touch. He had his back to me, so he didn't have a clue where I was at. And I just thought, right, the only way here I'm going to win this ball is if I get the ball first, and then I just take Sean out straight away. I know if I don't do this, then he's going to give me one of the hardest games I've ever had, because that was the type of winger he was. He was relentless, and it just, in my head, the picture was perfect. He had a touch, and his back was to me, and he touched it towards like the touch line, thinking he was going to turn, and I would have been really close to him, that he would have spammed me. But I waited a little bit. So as he's had the touch, I've just gone, cleared the ball, and then just gone straight through him, give him a dead leg as I went through him. And he went off 10 minutes after. He couldn't run anymore. And he looked at me and he was like, he's just shaking his head. That That was ridiculous.
Man and ball, the best kind of challenge.
Why did you do that? He was saying to me. And then when you see him in tunnels, he, like you say, you just have that little smirk, and he's, yeah, you could see he was a little bit off put with. I put him off a little bit that he didn't want to come up against me too much.
Yeah,
he was class when he was at Man City, but then he never really developed past them. Perhaps you're the one who finished him.
What a great player he was. I mean, even at Chelsea when he went there, he was outstanding winger. And yeah, I used to love like them challenges, playing against them people, competing against them, trying to get in their head. It was just, it was fantastic.
Yeah. No, do you know what? I may have to YouTube that tackle to see if it's still about, because I really would love to see it. Yeah, I love those old school tackles.
The one you will see on YouTube one's the Maurice Folks one, though, when I was at West Brom. So you might want to search that one.
I'll have a scan. But yeah, I do miss that. I mean, that element of the game, obviously, we went into it with Nicky in a bit of depth. He's very much under the impression that he feels like, well, we touched upon it just now, the football has gone soft, and he even went as far as to say it's a sport that he probably wouldn't even really like to play right now, the way it's set up, with VAR or VAR, depending on what you want to call it, and you can barely make a tackle. How would you survive in the game today, do you reckon?
I'd have to play smarter. Obviously, you got to play the game the way you see it. But you've also, like you say there, I mean, I think that what summed VAR up and the other day was the West Ham decision, wasn't it, against the Chelsea player, just where he kicked the ball and then he's got sent off because he was running into him. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to send the player off for that, then the game has gone soft, because we're going to have to stop making tackles soon and just let players go past us and go on, then you go and score, or things like that. It just needs a bit of common sense. Like, the referees just need to get back to refereeing the games with how they used to. But I do believe that the referees need to be fitter. When I watch some of the referees, they lag behind the game with the speed of it. With the players now that are playing, they're a lot fitter. Keep up with the game. Again, you're relying on people in the studios on VAR. They've never played football before, so they're making decisions that are erratic, and in like the heat of the moment, they're making strange decisions where everyone's questioning them. Offsides, I mean, come on. When you watch some of these offsides now, and they've got these lines out.
Yeah.
Like, where's the benefit? Where's the benefit in it? Where's the striker getting the benefit of the game now, where he's leaning forward but his arm's offside? Well, you're not going to score with your arm because it'll be classed as handball.
Yeah.
Just little things like that just frustrate me. They're just trying to complicate the game, and again, it's rules that people have never played. They've never played it. You can tell it's becoming a sport that not a lot of people have played at that elite level, and they're just making these rules up just to frustrate a lot of people.
It is exactly that. I mean, it is common sense. I mean, like we've mentioned, I'm a Newcastle fan, right? So I was watching the Newcastle game on the weekend, and I'll hold my hands up. Newcastle have had a fair share of luck from VAR. We haven't really been on the wrong end of it that much. But on the weekend, I think there was a goal that was disallowed for Callum Wilson. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but
I haven't seen it, no.
Essentially, the ball's come off his arm, but his arm's down to the side. But if it comes off your arm, there's been a whole contention on the debate, but ultimately, I suppose you can score from it. But they've ruled it out. But the only reason it's hit his arm is because he's been pushed in the back by Trent Alexander-Arnold first. Yeah. So really, I think you just got to try and sort of apply some sort of common sense and just say, that's 50 to 1.5, 6 to 1, half dozen the other, and move on with it. But with the Chelsea game, like you mentioned, I think stuff like that. I mean, whether it's a red card, whether it isn't a red card, common sense debate. If we could just hear the refs talking and the VAR people talking, I don't know if it would have received such backlash if we could have heard one ref go to the other. Well, I know it's probably not deliberate, but he's landed awkwardly here, and it has put a career at risk. Yeah. So is it a red card? Yes. Has he meant it? No, but probably have to apply the letter of the law. Red card. Yeah. If that was said, people would kind of empathise with the ref. Just go, rules are rules. They were not blaming VAR. We're not blaming the refs. Let's actually look at the rule book. But there's a whole list of things wrong with it at the moment.
Yeah, when you look at challenges yourself, do you know what, that was a little bit naughty, that one. You see it as fans when we're watching it on the telly. We see what happens. If that goes to VAR, then surely if we can see it, you can see it. But it's like totally the opposite. It's like no. I mean, like even at the weekend with the Man United Leeds game, and Luke Shaw's, it's hit his arm, but he's not held his arm out. It's natural. It's instinct for a defender. When you defend, you try and move your body so you can get anything on the ball. No, intentionally was he trying to handball it, but yet we're like, oh, it's a VAR check for a possible handball. It's just killing the game. Literally kills the game with all these silly little decisions. What was the game actually? It was the this one really annoyed me. The Burnley game who were Burnley playing when Tarkowski kicked the player in the head?
And
it went to VAR. But for me, right, okay, but if that's in the middle of the pitch, that's a foul.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Yeah.
Because it's in the box, you've not given a penalty. But yet, if it was outside the box, you would have given a foul for a high.
It was us. Yeah, we were playing Newcastle. Yeah,
Newcastle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So again, for a team like Newcastle who are down there, they need the points. Then decisions can cost you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, incidentally, Burnley went up the other end and scored from that as well. So
but then you're looking at, right, well, who's going to take responsibility? Who's going to come out and apologise? Who's going to apologise that now Newcastle have lost millions of pounds because we've just been relegated because of a decision like that?
I mean, you can apply that logic over and over and over again. I mean, look at Sheffield United and Villa last season, but goal line technology just broke and nobody noticed.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
You forgot to put goal on. That's what was it he said? He come out after when they went further up the pitch. He went, "Oh, my watch has flashed goal." What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? If you see it, you know he's in the. You can. We can clearly see it. Surely ref can see it that he's in the net. The ball's over the line. Goal.
Yeah. It's you know what it's we live in an era now, especially in football, where there's no accountability. Like people, they don't answer to anybody, and I think that starts at the top with the suits in the FA. What you need in this country and just in football in general, I feel, Paul, is you need football people making football decisions. And what you have now is a lot of lads, right, that are, whether they're suits at the top of the FA or whether they're referees, a lot of lads that would barely even make it into their local five-a-side teams. They're not good footballers. They don't have good football knowledge. They don't have good football IQs. And the game doesn't come naturally to them in any way, shape or form. It's a struggle. And I always say, Paul, and this is a saying I kind of live by now as I've grown older, if you can only paint by numbers, you should never tell Picasso how to paint. And there's a lot of people, right, that are painting by numbers, that are telling these Picassos, this is how you need to paint. And they don't have a clue what they're talking about. They don't.
Yeah, they're just clueless people. And it would be, why don't we just go and trial it where we've got ex-footballers in the VAR studio? Why don't we do that? Like, again, we're not losing anything. We're not going to miss out on anything. So try it, trial and error it, see what happens.
Well, I think, you could put, for example, Neil Ruddock, get Razor Ruddock in there with 4 cans. I think he'd still get the decision right before some of these guys. Stick him in the truck outside the ground, right, with a bottle of Corona and let him make the decisions. And I still think he'd get more right than most of these guys.
It's just the wrong football, wouldn't he? Neil would be footballs.
It's just so poor, like, honestly. And it's embarrassing as well. Do you know, when you look around the world, I know it's not perfect in other countries, right? But they seem to be getting it significantly more right than we are.
Yeah, but they're trialing it first, aren't they? Before they 100% know it's going to work. Yeah. We've just gone on then. Let's try this and see how it works. And it's just not worked. It's just been a disaster.
I mean, they've changed the handball rule 3 times in one season. I mean, that says it all.
Yeah. And again, as a defender, when you're defending in the box and you've got your arms by your side, but yet the ball's booted at you, how's that a penalty? I've not moved my arms, but yet you're given a penalty because it's hit my arm.
Yeah, I mean, a handball is when I genuinely sympathise. I sympathise with all parties. I sympathise with the defender because it's harsh at times. I mean, we've all played at Sunday League level. You've played at pro level, and it's always the same. Sometimes the ball hits you and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then I sympathise with the referees as well, because how do you prove intent? It's how can you prove if something's in a natural position in real time? It's just handball. I feel there'll never be a point where it's not a grey area, but the rest is you could solve.
But that's communication as well, though, fellas, isn't it? Like you say, he's mic'd up.
Yeah.
Like, we'll let the game. What I do like about it is that now they're letting the game flow while the decision's being looked at. So I like that. That's progressed instead of the players standing around for 4 or 5 minutes. But all the person in the ear of the referee's got to say is, I'm not sure. What are your thoughts? And if the referee says, I'm not sure, right, no decision then. And then the game just keeps playing. That's all it takes.
Yeah, they cracked it with rugby. If you just can't, like, you always hear in rugby, show me a different angle. Show me a different angle. I can't see from that angle. Can you get an angle on top of it? And if they can't see it, then just stick with the on-field decision. And no one argues with it because no one can prove you wrong.
What I would love, seriously, fellas, what I would love is the refs to be mic'd up.
Yeah.
The guy in the VAR studio goes, you need to come over and look at the screen. I would love the ref to go, for fuck's sake. That would just make my day, that would just make my day. I can't even make a decision in the studio, and I've now got to run 50 yards to the screen. For fuck's sake. I would love that. I would love it if they were mic'd up and that just comes.
One day you might get your wish, because it's getting to that stage now where someone's going to have a mental breakdown on the pitch and go, for fuck's sake, right, I'll just look on the screen.
There'd be me at home going, yes.
It's an interesting conversation, and how it evolves, look, it's anybody's guess, but it could go either which way. Right, so Paul, one thing we do now on this podcast is we have what we call a 1 to 11. So we put an ex-pro on the spot. We say to you, we want you to pick a 1 to 11 of the best players you played with across all the clubs you played for. So 1 to 11 could be any formation. Pick a manager as well. Obviously, feel free to include yourself as well if you want to. But 1 to 11, any formation of the best players you played with.
Right. So this is like, I had this in my mind anyway, because I think I had to do one not so long ago. So Graham Taylor would be the manager, first and foremost, Graham Taylor, because he was my mentor growing up as a kid, and he was fantastic. Right back, I would have Nigel Gibbs, who I played with at Watford. He was there for 20 years. I loved watching him develop. He made my game develop as well. He was one of the best right backs I'd seen 1v1 defending. So strong, so quick across the ground. So he would be right back. Two centre halves would be Curtis Davis and Jonas Olsson.
Oh, okay.
Right. No, sorry. Bring that back. Gary Cahill and Jonas Olsson.
Yeah.
So there would be my two pairings at the back there. Left back, I would go for myself, but because it's best 11, I'm going to go Neil Clement.
Oh, okay.
So Neil Clement, who I played with at West Brom, was outstanding. He was just ridiculous. Midfield would be Jonathan Greening, sitting midfield player.
Yeah.
So he would be my midfield player.
Was he Championship Player of the Year when you played with him?
Yes, yeah. So we got in the Championship Team of the Year. Yeah. In front of Jonathan Greening would be Jack Wiltshire.
Oh, so one of my favourites.
Just in front of him, he would be there. On the right would be Zoltán Gira.
Yeah.
Remember Zoltán? He was the magician, the Hungarian magician, we used to call him.
He scored a fantastic goal at the Euros as well.
Oh, he was elastic man. He was. He would pull the ball out of the air that no one else could even think of doing, unless you go off injured doing it.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable at doing that. Left of the sort of, I would say, left of the three in front of Jonathan Greening. Oh, it's a tough one. This is because I've played with some good wingers over the years. I would probably put in there Jason Kumas.
Oh, do you know what? You're not the first that said that.
Jason Kumas. Unbelievable talent, and how he never went to one of the top 5 clubs, I'll never know. He was an unbelievable player, so talented. Probably just, again, he was too laid back, Jason, where he just really went through the motions with certain things, and that
I'm sure he was in Nicky's team, was he, Reece?
Nicky's team. It was someone's team, and we had the exact same conversation, how he was unbelievable and just didn't manage to get to that next level.
Yeah.
Believe me, as Welsh fans, I wish he had.
Yeah, he was superb. He was unbelievable at West Brom. And then up top, Kevin Phillips and Kevin Davis, two Kevs.
That's a good strike force. That's a strike force.
So there's the goal scorers there.
Yeah, there's certain names now that keep cropping up when we ask ex-pros these questions. Like Gary Cahill came up the other day in Ivan Klasnich's one. Did you play with Ivan Klasnich?
Played with Klas as well, yeah.
he's different. Like I mean, we've interviewed some guys, right? Even Klasnic is. I mean, he's got Zlatan Ibrahimovic levels of confidence. Like he was.
Yeah, Ivan. He's wild.
Now, with Ivan Klasnic, meaning to come to this, Paul, he's kind of almost made an accusation here. So I'll let you try and either clear your name or you can come clean. He said to us that you were something of a joker and shared a story of us of a locker room joke that, let's say, that you've played on one of your teammates. I just wanted to see if you would have any idea what he was talking about before I dropped that one.
Locker room.
Yeah, so leaving something in someone's locker.
Only if they annoyed me too much.
Yeah.
They'd have a funny smell in their locker, yeah.
Yeah. He told us that story and we just died laughing. It was great. And even Klasnic is a great storyteller as well. The guy,
he loves a story. He does love a story, and he got a few as well. He needs to be careful.
We've spoke to some confident lads, right? But even Klasnic is, I mean, he was just like, play me and I'll score. And I just remember thinking, wow, this guy really backed himself.
Well, he said it to Owen Coyle. He literally said it to Owen Coyle in the dressing room. Like there was a obviously we were struggling a little bit with Bolton, and I can remember it clearly. He just sat there and you could see he was gonna. I looked at him and I thought he's gonna say something soon. He's gonna say something. And he come on and he scored. And Owen Coyle tried to make a joke of it, like being funny, like he was. And Ivan just went, you don't play me. He says, when you play me, I score.
Yeah.
Just like literally have that. Go on, and Owen, like you go on, you have that and deal with that.
Yeah. He said, because I think, who was it, Reece? Did he say, was it Gary Megson or Owen Coyle? They wanted him to run. And he's like, I don't run, I score goals. Like this foreign attitude, like British lads now are busting a gut to get around the pitch, and he's like, run, what do you mean?
Gary Megson used to run for fun, Gary.
Yeah. No, even described it in great detail, and it was it was an eye-opener speaking to him. But I think that's pretty much everything we got now, Reece. So was there anything else you wanted to touch upon?
No, I was desperate to bring up that Ivan Klasnic story.
We got clarity. Yeah, no, thank you, Paul, again for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. It's been an excellent hour chatting to you, honestly. I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. In terms of everybody watching this, obviously like the video, subscribe to the channel, do what you usually do. We will leave Paul's Twitter and Instagram handles in the description below, so make sure you add him up and follow him on the social media platforms. We will be back next week with another guest, so we will see you then. Until next time, people, take care for now. Ciao.